Hi, I'm going to run you through a quick demo of how you can use Terminalwire to ship a command line experience that's as awesome as what you see from Stripe, Heroku, and GitHub. All right, for this demo, we're going to look at a simple link shortening application. It works like this. You give it a URL, and it creates a short link for it that we can copy, and it also generates an open graph screenshot for it. So we get something like this, and it redirects us to that URL. Now we want to add a command line application to this so that developers or people who use command line applications can easily create and manage their short links. To get started, we go to the Terminalwire website, and then we find the web framework that we're going to use. In our case, we're going to use Ruby on Rails for this demo. You'll see we just go to the install Terminalwire on Rails command, we bundle add the Terminalwire Rails runtime, and then of course we run the installation command, which is going to create a few files in our Rails application. Let's have a look at those. Now we're inside of the TinyZap server application, and we can see once we run that installation command, we have a new folder in our application called the terminal folder. This is where your Terminalwire files will live. Before we jump into that, let's see what our command line looks like. So we type in bin TinyZap, just like we would any other terminal application. And whenever we run it, it sends this command to our development server, which responds with all these commands that we can run. All right, let's try one of these out. Bin TinyZap open. Awesome. It opens our web page application just as we had expected. Let's see what this code looks like. And you'll see that there's no APIs needed to do this. And that's the magic of Terminalwire. All right, so if we go into the main terminal, you can see our open command is right here. All we're doing from the server is saying browser launch. What this does, it sends the browser launch command from your server to the Terminalwire thin client that's running on your users' computers, and it tells them to open the root URL, which in our case is our development server. When we deploy this to production, the URL would of course be the production URL. Another thing that a lot of command line applications have to do is authenticate, but authentication is not as straightforward as it used to be. No longer is it enough to just take an email and a username. Oftentimes we have to open a URL so that people can sign in with Google, or for enterprise workflows they may need to use SAML or Okta. This is where Terminalwire shines. We can run the Terminalwire login command, and again it will open a URL to whatever authentication workflow we need. In our case it opens the browser, and like we see in a lot of other bigger technology companies' applications, we can approve or deny the request to log into the client. We're going to approve in this case, and we're going to switch back, and we can see, hey, we've approved and we're now logged in as this person. And we can see this happen right here. We opened the authentication URL, and then Terminalwire waits back for a response from the approve or deny. And if it's accepted, then we set the current user in the command line to the user that just authorized. Now, what's interesting is Terminalwire also handles session. Just like cookies in a web browser, Terminalwire will save an encrypted, tamper-proof cookie to your users' workstations so that it can remember state. And again, that's something that you don't have to think about. Now again, this application is dealing with lists of links. So if you run bin TinyZap, you'll see that we have a link command. And if we run that, you can see it gives us all of the commands that we need for that to work. So let's run link list, and we'll see what we have in there. Awesome. So that's the link that we created at the beginning of the demo. This is the code that we've implemented to list the links. Again, something you'll notice that's missing, there's no APIs, there's no JSON. We didn't have to worry about any of that. All we're doing as a developer is we're calling puts, which is streaming standard IO from the server to the thin client that's running on our users' machines. And of course, we see we have a table here with a URL and a header, and we have the output right there. Now just to try it out, let's see what happens if we remove the sixth link, which is our ID right there. Link removed. You know what? I noticed that we have a bug here. This is not a URL and this is not a title. So why don't we fix that? And I can show you again how simple it is to make changes. All right, so we updated the header in there, and then we're going to run link ls again so we can see our links. Oh no, it's blank. If you look here, you can see it's blank because we have no links. So we need to show a message, no links found. All right, let's run that again. And you'll see when we ran the command that immediately picked it up. If we deployed this fix to a server, as soon as that gets deployed, the new code is what streams to the command line interfaces. Awesome. Now let's create a link and we'll see if all of our ID and everything is picked up. So we create a link, it gives us the URL, and then we list the links again. And you can see we have our ID column, URL, and title, just as it should be. But we want to have a feature where we open this. And if we run this now, you'll see that open doesn't work. So let's go ahead and add that to our command line application. Desk open, open a link. Look at what this created. We have a command called open. It accepts an ID. It checks if we're logged in. And of course, it checks to see if the link is found. If it's not, we get this message. If it is found, the browser is going to launch the link. So let's try this with a link that doesn't exist. And we should see the link not found error message. Awesome. And then, of course, if we launch a link that does exist, it should open that URL in a web browser. Great. This is the URL that we launched from the browser, and everything is working as it should. All right, now about that thin client. This whole time we've been running a command called bin tinysap. Where does that live, and what does that look like? If we open up our bin folder inside of our Rails application and have a look at tinysap, we'll notice there's just 2 lines of text. The first one points at my local development server, and then the other one is saying, hey, I want you to load this URL in the Terminalwire exec thin client. So it streams the contents of this into your user's terminal through Terminalwire exec. And that's really where all the magic happens. Inside of our Rails routes file, you'll see where we mount the terminal application. If we look for terminal, we send the main terminal through the Rails Tor server, and we stream this over WebSockets. So again, if we open the main terminal file, this is what we're streaming to our users. And when we put it all together, this is what our users see. They're running commands as if they're just running regular commands on their workstation, and it streams it over WebSockets to their screen. Whenever it ships to production, it would look like this. You just run tinysap, and you see everything that we've just deployed. There's no bin in front of it. This is how your users interact with your application. A Terminalwire does more than just stream standard out and URLs. If you want to see the full range of what it can do, go to the Terminalwire website, click on Docs, find your framework, in our case Ruby on Rails, and then you can see in the table of contents all of the things that I talked about and more. We went over sessions today, authentication, and standard I/O. You can also manipulate files and directories, read environment variables, open a web browser, and of course there's topics on distribution and licensing. So I encourage you to go to the Terminalwire website, click Get Started. You can have this up and running in a few minutes. Inside of an afternoon, you can have a pretty well-baked command line application that users can use in production. And of course, iterating on it is very easy since you don't have to worry about dealing with APIs and all that stuff. So it's really easy to get feedback from users and make improvements iteratively without fear of breaking APIs or worrying about software updates or dealing with all the junk around installation and cross-platform binaries. Terminalwire handles all of that for you. All you have to worry about is building command line applications in your server, and we take care of the rest.